change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
What exists, reality itself, is gorgeous. It is the plenum, the fullness of total joy. The universe is a celebration. It's a fireworks show to celebrate that existence is. Wowee.
For those of us seeking a life of meaning and purpose, capturing fulfillment in every moment of now, seeking the truths of our reality so we can live this life to its fullest. This is the Live This Life podcast. I'm your host, Heath Cummings.
And I'm your co-host for the day, Alexis McQuillen. We're here to inspire you to ask yourself the question every single day. Are you living or are you killing time?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. And I've got my amazing co-host, Alexis McQuillen, and I cannot believe that it has been 6 months since we've done an episode. Like, the Aliens episode was 6 months ago. That's
wild. It doesn't feel like that, to be honest. It does, but it doesn't. Nuts.
I know. It was quite a while ago. And before we actually hit record on the microphone, this episode isn't going to be about aliens, but I have to say something because a news article just popped up that the Pentagon chief said there's likely a mothership in the solar system. And I'm like, I had this like awesome reaction. I'm kind of like, what? Like this, how is this? It was actually on the nightly news, I guess, the other night. I don't watch the news. So total news snob, mainstream media snob. But yeah, this was on mainstream news the other night, and it was a mothership, and it's like likely dropping drones, and that's what we're seeing on our planet. And people are just like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's like, wait, hang on, like, how are we glossing over this stuff and just like nonchalantly?
It's kind of funny because it's like they're coming out with it, and I've actually had conversations with people. They're like, I don't know if I believe in aliens. I'm like, what? Like the Pentagon, the freaking Pentagon is coming out with stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. But again, I've always had that standpoint of if they're all of a sudden telling us stuff, then there's likely somewhere else they don't want us to look, like an Epstein list or whatever it is, like wherever they don't want us to look. You know, for all these years, they've been chasing things and shooting stuff down, and you know, yeah. And now they're telling us the truth, supposedly. So hey,
did you see? Anyways. Speaking of Epstein, did you see the Jimmy Kimmel thing?
Yeah. Which one? Because I've seen quite a bit of Jimmy Kimmel stuff.
Well, you can tell this better than I can, but what was it? Was it like somebody, like somebody who posted a tweet, and it's like, tell me you're not on the Epstein list without telling me you're on the Epstein list, and then there's a video of Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, it was Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers.
Was it Aaron Rodgers?
Totally. Like, Aaron has been a huge victim of cancel culture because he had, like, you know, anti-COVID, anti-vax stances, you know, which was kind of turning out to be a valid stance from all the stuff we're seeing. But, you know, the media was totally against him, like trying to cancel the hell out of him. So that was just all over him. And he starts making some really good points about a few things. And Jimmy Kimmel pops up with like boy, we need to revisit that concussion protocol. And everybody's like laughing in the audience. But people like, hang on a second. The stuff Aaron's saying, like, Jimmy's trying to laugh it off, like Aaron's got brain damage, but the stuff he's saying is like totally valid. So it's like,
and didn't Jimmy Kimmel, didn't he say something about how he brought up the Epstein thing that Aaron Rodgers was talking about it? Or do you know what I'm talking about? Because I want to pull it up. Can we pull it up?
I know. I wish I had the clip. I wish I had the clip.
Whatever.
Yeah, but yeah.
But anyway, little sus.
Anyway,
little sus,
what else you?
As the kids would say.
Yeah, sus. They I've been up here freezing my tail off in the Northeast, and you've been like jet setting to all these fun places. I know you at least went one place where it snowed in the last few months. So, you know, you were all happy about it, though, as much as you thought you were going to freeze to death if you ever experienced the crap that we see regularly all year long.
I know. But before, I'm like, I can't do it. I wouldn't be able to survive. And I was like frolicking in the snow. Yeah. Like, okay, maybe I could.
You just got back from Hawaii, right?
Yes. We were at a wedding. My boyfriend's little brother just got married. So we're the ones that are left out. Everybody's married. He has 3 other brothers. There's 4 brothers, and they're all married now. So, but Hawaii was okay. So I'm going to be a pessimist and an optimist. And I'm mostly an optimist. So for me to be like, Hawaii is beautiful, but it's also so unbelievably expensive that it almost ruins the trip. Like
Really?
every single place that we ate at, and even if we were like sharing food and maybe it had one drink, every bill was over $100. It was insane. And I'm not trying to turn people away from Hawaii. Maybe it's just because we were in like the foo-foo bougie, area, Wailea, Maui. So on that end, it's like, ooh, like ouch. Whereas we knew going in it was going to be expensive, but when you're actually there, you're like, oh my God. Oh my God. we gotta figure some stuff out. So we got along with the locals real fast because we're like, dude, where do we go? But on the other end, we went scuba diving, we went snorkeling, I chilled with turtles. Like on that end, it was like really, really cool. Have you
Nice.
been to Maui?
No, I've the farthest I've been on the West Coast. I've done like Oregon and Washington and stuff, Northern California, but I've never even like been to Southern California or anything like that. So Hawaii, oh yes, Hawaii has been on the list. Oh, dude, I've had the most uneventful, like I've had an eventful adult life here. It's been all like local crap and all the crap I've gone through at home, like all these great stories. I never left Massachusetts through all of it, Most of the stuff I did was all in New England. I traveled all around New England, but that's it. But no, Hawaii's on my list. Like Hawaii's definitely on the bucket list. I've got so many places I want to go in the next few years. So I'm like
What's
living
like
vicariously through all of you guys that get to travel.
What's like if you could go to like one country right now, where would you go?
Probably Ireland first. I would love to just go because I have Scottish Irish roots, so I would love to go there and there's nothing in the United States that's as old as the stuff in Ireland. Actually, I'll take that back because another news story I just saw the other day was they knocked down some place in Miami and they found a 7,000-year-old structure underneath this building. Yeah.
Shut up.
But it's not as beautiful as
here.
Ireland. What's that?
Well, if you think about it too, like in the United States, like we haven't even been here that long.
Oh, I know.
mean, of course, like, Indians, whatever, but like that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the whole history, I talked about this in just the last episode about how our history's been totally suppressed and changed, and new discoveries aren't really taught in the mainstream academia because the professors are too proud to admit that the stuff they taught might not be right. And there is so much evidence, like the Bimini Road in Bermuda, and there's like so much stuff in the Caribbean, like those big weird spheres that are all over Costa Rica and stuff. Like something definitely was going on all over like the southern south or what eastern Florida area, like all of that, and through Bermuda Triangle and all that kind of area and stuff. Like something definitely weird has gone on in that whole area with architecture and stuff that's under the water now since sea levels have gone up over the last few thousand years. So stuff we don't even know. But anyways, I digress. I would love to go to Ireland. I don't know where else would you like to go other than the places you've already been? Because you like get to travel. You get to go some fun places.
Yeah. That's like my favorite thing. I know everyone's like all the girls are like, what do you love to do? Travel. Like, it's just true. I love to travel. Annoyingly, I'm like, all I want to do in life is travel. But yeah, I have been to some really cool places. You know what? I'm going to say Ireland too, but it's because in, 2021, I booked that UK trip and I wasn't able to go. So yeah, like the going to London, training up to Scotland, flying over to Ireland. Like I want to do that so badly because I had that all planned out. Have I said that on the podcast before?
No, but we should get like an entourage of people and go do that. What an amazing like trip that would be with a bunch of video and stuff. Oh my God. That would be so sweet. That would be awesome.
I know. That would be amazing.
All right,
that
listeners.
Would be so cool. Yeah.
We'll put together a package deal and all you guys can tag along.
How fun.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Actually,
Let's make that happen.
Our next trip is we're planning on doing something out to Washington State because that's where my brother and sister were born. They're 10 years younger than me, and my dad moved out there. He kind of started family. I had the chance to go with him, but I chose to stay home with my mom. And they were born out there and they moved back when they were like 4 or 5 years old. So they don't remember it. And I went out there every summer and spent a couple months a year. So I haven't been out there since like 93 or 94. So it was like gorgeous though, like the huge mountains. I mean, the stuff that's around here is like foothills out there, like I would love to go out there. So we're going to do that before my dad gets too much older. So that trip's on the horizon, I hope, but we'll see.
I could totally see you living in Washington.
I could. I don't know. I could. I don't see myself living anywhere. I just want to like get a camper and just travel. Like just get sick of one spot
Yeah,
after a few months and then just go to the next place and then just hang there until I'm ready to move on to the
totally.
next one. Yeah, that'd be great.
Have you seen like those decked out vans
Yeah,
that
like
people like the Traveler? They're so
Abigail
cool.
Gazda, she does the Hearts Unleashed podcast, and I was on hers really early on in this whole journey of stuff, and she's actually on this one really early on too. And she just made herself a van. Like she's totally like, yeah. She bought a
Oh,
blank van and just made herself a Sprinter van camper and lives in it and travels and stuff like that. Like she's amazing. She's awesome. I'm gonna get her back on the show pretty soon to get an
yeah,
update on
you
what
have
the
to.
van
That's so
life is
cool.
like. But yeah, she I told
Oh
her all
my
the time I'm
gosh.
so envious of her life.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. Get her back on.
Yeah.
I want to know what
Yeah.
the van
You
life
love
is
her.
like.
She's got such awesome energy. I'll have to give you her stuff. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
send it over.
Anything else interesting before
So
we
what have
dive
you?
into some of our heartfelt topic for today? Because I knew you had a post that I want to dive into that I think the listeners are going to love your realization on a few things, and I can tease out some stuff on it too. But anything else
Good, because
interesting
I'm
and
like,
fun been
once
going
it's
on
out,
in the
I'm like,
last 6 months with you?
um, I will. Well, I mean, this kind of plays into what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, but I feel like this year feels energetically so much lighter than last year,
Mm,
and I think that that probably goes for the majority of us.
yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's definitely been a stressful one with me setting my own deadlines and trying to get this stuff going here. But it's like I knew the light at the end of the tunnel was coming. Like I'd be back in this chair talking to you, like getting this stuff going again.
Hmm.
And once this got going, I knew that it was just going to take off. So I was trying to get like all my
Yeah,
loose ends tied up because I have just no idea what's going to come out of this whole new effort. But awesome energy in it. It's like building up. It's
it's
anticipation.
exciting.
So yeah.
Yeah, yours was like self-affliction for sure.
Yeah,
Your
I put
deadlines and
myself through
everything.
stupid crap.
You do.
I
You
do.
really do.
So
This
what
looks
was
familiar.
your main theme over the last few months? I mean, I've been in contact with you all the way, but
Hmm.
what was basically the gist of that post that you put up the other day? So for those who might not follow Alexis, what's wrong with you? So go on social media and follow her. But she basically put up a post talking about some revelations about going into entrepreneurship. And that number one is a huge leap. Like some people just might think like, oh, it's easy to throw yourself out there. You're just going to decide that you're going to work for yourself and do whatever. But it's a huge leap of faith. It's a leap of faith. It's a jump of courage. And it's a huge thing to put yourself out there. And you're going to rely on yourself for everything. There's no job that's cutting you a paycheck. There's no nothing. Like you have to be self-motivated. And that led you up to some of the lessons you've learned in the last year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a risk. But so in 2021, I started taking clients on for my coaching, for my self-awareness coaching, my intuitive business. And guys, it was so easy. Like when I say that I would write a post and then I'd attract a client. Like it was just back to back. And I was like, man, like this is like my jam. This is easy and I love it. I love it so freaking much. I'm so passionate about like helping people come home to themselves and understand who they are. So I was like, well, I'm getting to a point where I feel like I've learned what I've needed to learn within my full-time job. So I'm going to do this. Like if I just keep up this momentum, like I have the self-motivation, like you said. So I went full time in November 2021. I didn't really I was like taking kind of a break and I didn't take it completely serious probably till about February of 2022. And that's when shit hit the wall. When you go full time with a business, you understand the risks, but I was in a complete flow state before because I already had the foundation in place of making money regularly. So I didn't have to worry about that. And I didn't even think about it when I went full time because I thought, well, I'm already getting clients left and right. Like it's just going to be the same thing. Like I had full faith in myself, which is amazing, but there were lessons to be learned. And so in 2022, I learned very, very quickly uh, the polarity of money because the energy of money is very it's if you think about the law of attraction, and when you think of something and then you let it go, you end up attracting it. It's the same thing with money. It's a service. It's not the same as lack. So if you're worrying constantly, you're not going to attract money because it's not in the same vibration. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Did I explain
totally.
that?
Yeah. Like there's so much stuff that the laws of resonance and stuff. I mean, there's physical evidence for a whole bunch of different laws of resonance. And when people talk about the law of attraction, it totally sounds woo woo to people who aren't familiar with it.
Totally.
But people who live their lives in fear and misery and, whatever else they lack and all that stuff, they attract more of that. It's a natural byproduct of it because that's what your resonance is and you attract more of it. So it's exactly what you're saying. When you have that fear mentality, you attract more of it and it's a hard cycle to break.
Yeah, exactly. But during that, so my nervous system was completely jacked up because I wasn't receiving clients, and I was constantly pushing and forcing myself to continue going. But if I was to actually sit down in stillness and take a breath, I would have realized from the get-go that I went into business for all the wrong reasons, which I think is partially why I wasn't receiving clients, because I didn't want it in the first place. I went into it not only to help. I helped people, of course I did, and I did go into it for that, I will say. But there's this other side where I went into it to prove my worth. I thought it was going to be like it sounds like embarrassing to say now, but it's true. It's like I thought that I was going to be some famous thought leader, and who knows, maybe that will still happen, but like
It will.
those were the reasons I was going into. Who knows? Household name, people who look up to me, uh, literally just all of the wrong reasons that were so inauthentic to me, and I wasn't even aware of it. And it was really to prove my worth. So when I wasn't getting clients, I really had to do a lot of self-reflection and deep dive into the reasons of why I wanted to become an entrepreneur, if I really wanted to coach clients in this capacity, if I questioned everything. And so, I don't know, I think that a lot of times we create these illusions and fantasies and beliefs in our head, and when we actually set out to do it, we realize, oh, maybe I didn't really want this in the first place. And what's the underlying reason going on beneath the surface that's fueling this when it's not really authentic to myself?
Right. I mean, that's huge. I mean, so what was the amount of time that all this was crammed into? I mean, like, when did you kind of, I guess, start hitting the wall, like you said, but like, when did you sort of start hitting the wall? And when did you really come to your realization of, like, I'm going to just let this go. I'm going to let it be what it is. I'm going to just kind of move into whatever's going to bubble up. Like, how long did this process take for you? Because sometimes that happens to you multiple times in life.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say typically when I notice these type of things, I can move through them very quickly. This was a huge one where it took me all year, because I've had the entrepreneur spirit since I was 18 years old. And I have built up the illusion behind being a business owner for years. Imagine how many beliefs I had to like take down to tackle throughout an entire year. So yeah, it took me a long time to be like, okay, let's just go with the flow. I don't need to force. I don't need to push. I don't need to like figure this out right now. It's all going to come flowing in once I just let go of what I think it's supposed to look like.
Right. Wow. So, I mean, when you said you were trying to prove something, though, like, do you think you were trying to prove it to the world, or were you trying to prove it to yourself? Because that's a big one. I know a lot of people will try to prove certain things out there to the world, or at least say they're trying to prove it to the world, but then ultimately they're trying to prove something to themselves. It's like they're trying to convince themselves of something, like they're not fully convinced. And I in the experience that I've had very limited amounts of coaching with people. I've kind of not taken people on. I've been kind of snobbish about it. I hate to say that, but like, just some people I just don't think I'm the right person that they would coach. But the people that I did work with in the last few years, I feel like they were their own worst enemy, but they were unaware of it. Like, they were the ones who they were trying to convince, or they were their own hangups and stuff. Like, who do you feel like you were trying to convince? Do you feel like you were trying to convince the world, or were you trying to convince maybe yourself, or were you maybe convincing a trauma doesn't really exist anymore, like in a way of healing it.
All of the above,
Yeah.
for sure. I have this like memory of I feel like maybe I've told this to you or maybe I don't know. But I have a stepbrother, and when we were younger, I think I was probably like 16 or 17, and I was like at that time I was like, I'm gonna make $100,000 a year. And and he's like, no, you're not. Not many people make that. And so I think that moment I was like, how dare you say that to me? Like, how hard could it be? Do you not think I'm smart enough? Like all of these like things boiling up, and I held on to that for so long. So I think that's part of it, is there's like proving my worth and my intelligence
Mm.
and my tenacity to other people, but then ultimately when we're trying to prove it to others, we're really just trying to prove it to ourselves. So I love that you said that,
Yeah.
because like for me, yeah, I think deep down it was like like I said, I told people I'm gonna be this and I'm gonna be that and I'm gonna have a business and I'm gonna travel the world, and so ultimately when you're saying all of these things, you kind of have to back it up. You think you have to back it up, um, but yeah, I think really the during the year I I was proving it to other people. I was proving my worth because I thought that I would feel more worthy if other people saw me in that way.
Right.
But it's not true at all.
It's no, and you're so right. And if, one of the biggest things about this, like number one, kudos to you for recognizing that in yourself. Like once somebody does come through the other side, it's always great to hear the recognition from other people that they recognize what you went through. You know what I'm saying? Like when you and I were going back and forth in text message the other day in the run up to this, and you kind of giving me sort of a gist of what that post was all about. And, it was kind of like, congratulations. Like, it was kind of like, I wanted to just step back and just do the slow clap, just like sit there, just like, because I could tell in conversation, I could tell certain times when we were going to record and it was like, yeah, today's just not the right day. And I told you never to worry about that because this is like an art form. You can't force it. We have to just do these kinds of things whenever you're feeling it, because otherwise it translates right out into what we do. So, whenever it happens, it happens. But I could tell that there was something brewing. Like you were digging through, doing whatever. And I was like, I'm not going to press. Like if it comes out, it comes out. If it's not, it's none of my business. But it's great to know that this is what the ultimate end result is. And I've got to say, like, you even have like a brighter look about you. Like it seems like you've just kind of like you're like, all right, yeah, I'm ready for whatever comes next. And it's I bet you you could probably say it's one of those life lessons where it sucked to go through the emotions that you went through at that time, but you wouldn't trade it because the end result of it all was something that's just a valuable perspective you can't buy. There's no school, there's no amount of money that can teach you some of these perspectives that life teaches you.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, first off, thank you so much for saying that. And it's interesting enough. I've been hearing that too, of like, you feel like lighter. You feel like you're like, yeah, you feel brighter. And I feel that within myself too, because I'm not forcing my way into a path that's not meant for me.
Right.
And yeah, I feel like the biggest indicator of it was self-afflicted last year, because I knew probably within the month of going full time that it wasn't meant for me at that moment. Not in the way that I was doing it. It was so inauthentic. And so I was like, well, no, I just went full time. I just told the world I can't just give up now.
Yeah.
Like our body just knows.
Yeah.
I knew because I was so anxious all the time. Like that's how I know. Have you ever had a moment like that?
Oh, I'll dive into mine real quick because it's a super long story, but I've actually told it on an episode. It was basically, the title of it was something like The Best Thing That Never Happened. And it was basically when I had decided that I was going to walk away from that last career, and I had literally no idea what the hell I was going to do. Like I had a lot of opportunities, but I didn't want to go into anything police or investigative. Like I just wanted out of that whole persona and that box that you fit in when you have to be that way and that person. Like I still have to break out of that person from time to time. I still slip back into that every once in a while. It's 20 years of conditioning. So I didn't want to do that. I knew that was
one of the biggest personality flaws that I had in my life was that it just teaches you to be so typecast and kind of cold and hard to the world. And I went through so much of it. It's like, I just want to break free. I want to become myself again. I want to be that 19-year-old kid that I was when I started that career path and go back to that guy. Because that guy was fun, kind of nuts, like a little crazy, was into some wacky shit. Like, I want that guy back. So I love to cook. I absolutely love cooking. I love doing stuff. I love entertaining with people. So there's a restaurant in our town. Our town has like no businesses. It's a beautiful town. It has so much potential, but it has no restaurants. And there was this tiny little hole in the wall that was for this lady who had run it forever. It was like a grease trap. And the place was like kind of a dump. I had a decent chunk of change saved up from all the years of doing all the stuff I've done. So we were going to buy this property. We were going to renovate. The renovation turned into basically we had to tear the building down and start with a hole in the ground. And I still wasn't out of the contention yet. I'm like, all right, at least we're going to start with a blank canvas. And then this whole summer of 2017 just kept going on and on and on. And I just had these circumstances that the police thing pushed me out completely and thrust me right into this whole hog. Like, okay, you want to do this, you're in it and you got to do this. And you only have so much money to get this thing going by a certain amount of time because you're going to start to need an income before you go broke. So
Yeah.
ultimately, though, it didn't happen. The price tag jumped up to like $300 and something thousand in renovations and construction fees, and all the equipment in this existing restaurant was crap. So this whole summer, I was literally a nervous wreck to the point I ended up in the emergency room. And I think that's actually, like it was my ultimate dark night of the soul. Like I've gone through probably like 3 of them so far in my life. That was the worst one by far because it just shook me to my core and I was an absolute wreck, like shaking. My wife had to take a leave of absence. I had all sorts of PTSD stuff get dragged up because my fight or flight, my brain body connection was all messed up. It was partially due to some dietary issues too that were happening at the same time. Like it was like a perfect storm of crap. But then after it was all done and over, I had a much clearer perspective on, I guess, when you think you want something and the universe is just throwing obstacle after obstacle in your way, then you got to kind of like reevaluate that situation to see why that's happening. And it's still even tough for me to this day. I don't know the lesson of the universe is trying to see if you really want it, so keep pushing, or the universe is trying to get in your way. This is not the path that's meant for you. I think a little bit of opposition, kind of like it was to get all this stuff set up. Like, yes, it was hard work and things kept popping up. I overcame them, but nothing ever really got in my way as a roadblock and said, don't go this way. And like a dumbass, I kept trying to climb over the roadblock and the roadblock just getting bigger and bigger every time. So like that whole thing, I guess it was a form of entrepreneurship. Like I was going to be my own boss, get out there, do my thing. And it was definitely a tough lesson. I think it was a good test run for what I'm kind of doing here with Live This Life and stuff. And like, this is going to be an organic development. And, I'm not going to step off of what I'm doing and go whole hog into anything. I think it's a healthy way to do it. But, again, it was one of the toughest things I ever went through, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And it was, again, like I said, the best thing that never happened, because ultimately, if I would have done that, I would have been my whole life savings. COVID would have hit 2 years later, and who knows where we would have been. I also would have probably never started this podcast either. So it all works out the way it's supposed to work out, and your whole experience, like this whole thing that your revelation that came your way. It'd be cool. It'd be really cool to fast forward right now 3 years and just see what's going to come out of it, so that you can ultimately look back and say, this is what happened and this is what happened and it led to this. And,
You know what? That is like one of my favorite things in life, because there are very painful moments in my life, like my mother dying, and that have led me to where I am now. But yeah, it all links up. So I agree. I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, okay, so 2022, during it, I was like, what the fuck? Why me? Like, it was so dramatic to me, like it was so painful. But now I'm, stepping out of it and processing and understanding the lessons. But I do feel like I agree. I think it is so perfect how it all played out. And I'm curious how yeah, in 3 years, I'm going to look back and be like, I did this and it led me to this and then it linked up here. And oh, I love that shit.
I know.
Don't you?
I do. It's what
so
happens
cool.
when you let go, though. It's what happens when you end up just letting go and you get into, a flow state. You move in directions. I mean, this delay of the podcast, there's so many different things that just popped up, like the right sponsorships that were starting to line up right now. And, a couple people reached out to feature their music. And it was all those things where I'm like, I reach out to somebody and they never get back to me with their music, or the book things. Like, how many books that you and I had talked about, and I'm like, I'm hoping this one works out. And I'm hoping this one works out. And ultimately, some of them are still like hung up. Like they're gonna happen. They're just waiting for a website to get done or another promotion or whatever. It just, nothing was lining up for this season. And then it was like, all right, well, I guess I can't wait. I'm not going to have another book for this season, I guess. And it was like the week that I was going to announce the date for the, starting the season up, was when Rasha got a hold of me and was just like, I would love to give you the rights to this book. What a great thing. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like, if we would have started this a couple weeks earlier, the timing would have been right. And just so much stuff, it lines up when you're in the right mindset. When you're not,
100%.
it just doesn't.
When you're worrying, goes back to what I was saying about money. If you're worrying about that shit, you're not going to pull that in. Kind of like, I think of people who, men or women, and they're like, I need a partner, I need a boyfriend, I need a girlfriend, I want to get married, I need it. And they're constantly worrying about it and asking the universe, why me? Why can't I attract my perfect mate? And then the moment, and so they don't attract that person, or they attract toxic relationships, people that are not good for them, who don't serve them. And then the moment they're like, you know what, I'm done with love, guess what happens? They attract their perfect mate, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same shit, like with this or with money. I don't know. It's just so fascinating. I have to tell you this. I don't think I've told you this, but when I was talking about money and how it flowed in so easily for me in the past, and how, handling resources and building off of it, like, it's just, money's always came to me in the most wondrous of ways, like the most magical ways. And now that I'm in a space where I'm not worrying about money, even if I'm like, right now, I'm just still figuring things out, I'm not worrying about it. And I was driving and I was thinking about how badly I would love to have these black Metcon shoes, because I started working out again at CrossFit. And I was just driving and I see a consignment store and I'm like, and it's in like a bougie area too. Like, why would there be black Metcons at a consignment store? I go to the consignment store, I look on the shelf and I'm like, there's black Metcons right here. So I manifested these shoes. The week later, I was thinking about how it's interesting that in my life, I've just randomly, when I need it, receive insurance checks. Guess what happens a week later? I go to the mailbox. I have an insurance check for $256 from health insurance that I haven't had for 2 years. Like, when you think of things and you just let it go, like, it's just so easy. It truly, like, we make it difficult, but manifesting's so easy.
Yeah, it is. Like,
Right?
I actually took a journal back in 2019 when I first started the show. So I started in late 2019. I think I started doing like the whole journal thing around like 2018, 2019. And in the beginning of this thing, I was starting to just learn all about, the concepts of manifestation. And I still am sort of on the fence of some of that stuff. I think you take certain actions and do certain things. And I think definitely energy is a definite part of that. But I think the more that you focus on something, just like if you're going to go buy a car, right? You go test drive a car and you decide you really want to get this car, and you drive home and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get this car. And for weeks, you're either waiting for your sales paperwork to finish up or blah, 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 blah. You see nothing but that car on the highway. You never saw it before. It's just because now it's in your awareness. It's kind of like, I feel like that's what happens with manifestation. Like, you look for the bits and pieces of things that were always in front of you. You just you never saw them before. So I kind of think like that's part of that. I'm not saying that manifestation isn't something a little bit more energetic and mystical, whimsical and all that stuff, but I think it's a little less woo-woo than some people make it out to be, but it's still a real thing. You manifest certain stuff in your life. You can manifest illness. I mean, some people manifest all sorts of crazy symptoms of stuff they don't actually have, right? So in this journal, I put down like 5 or 6 things that I wanted to manifest, like a certain amount of money by a certain year. I wanted to be on the the select board, the mayoral board for my town. I wanted to have a podcast that was listened to all over the world, and a couple of things. I have exceeded that salary amount. I have made the chair of the board. I didn't get just on that board. I became in charge of that board. And then this podcast, that's a bigger thing, and it's going where it's going. So it goes to show you that, like, you set your goals and you sort of set a destination. I say it a million times over, that you set a destination on the map and you just find your way there instead of just blindly trying to find your way there by taking dead end roads and stuff. It's like, this stuff is real. Like, it all comes about if you just stay focused on your dreams or whatever it is, your goals that you want to have come out in front of you.
But Heath, would you say me manifesting black Metcon shoes is a little bit mystical?
That's crazy. That's 100% crazy.
And an insurance check. I'm not lying about this. Like, I envisioned it, and I was like, huh. And it wasn't like, I'm going to manifest these. It was just like, I was thinking about this, and then I let it go, because what am I going to do about an insurance check or black Metcon shoes that are usually $130?
Right.
A little bit mystical.
That's
just
cool.
saying.
That is cool. That is pretty awesome. I got off.
But I agree. Like, what is it? Reticular activating system?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's
Yep.
called. So it's like, you see a
100%.
white car, now you're seeing the white car. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I've had some crazy, woo-woo mystical alignments happen lately. Just the numbers thing always starts for a lot of people when they first start out on the path of awareness and stuff. They start seeing the 1111 and all that kind of stuff. Like, I texted you yesterday, or my video thing, and my audio message to you, and it was 111 when I got done, and I was like, oh, that was cool, and I didn't think you'd even notice. And then you texted, hey, look at that, it was 111. So it was like a confirmation.
Oh, yeah.
But last night, I'm literally kneeling in this spot because we went through some technical difficulties and we were supposed to record last night. And I'm kneeling on the ground, playing with all these wires in this spot. And I hit the very first song that was in my music box on my computer. Just the very first thing that just happened to be in there was an unsorted song that I just had in there. And it happened to be, this something song about human, like hello, my name is human, or whatever. And in certain part of the song, it says, I figured it out, or don't figure it out, I figured it out. And I had no sound, and literally I plugged the thing in, and I said in my brain, I think I figured it out. And as soon as I did, the song was right there at that spot, and it goes, I figured it out. It was like an echo in my mind. And I just sat there, and I'm just like chuckling, and I'm shaking my head. And as I start to get up, the next words of the song were, get up off your knees, boy. Come face to face with your God and find out what you are. And I'm like,
shut up.
those
like moments I live for. That's so freaking cool. And we all have them too. We all have them. But
it's confirmation you're going in the right direction.
Coincidence.
There's no coincidence.
Yeah,
there is no coincidence. Come on.
I don't think so either.
Not with stuff like that. You decide to go to that store, a consignment store of all places, not a place that you would expect to find those things, and find something exactly like that. Like, that stuff doesn't happen. Like,
yeah, like, why would a consignment store have black like lifting shoes? So bizarre. This is where I get confused. I guess it's not confusion. It's just like So you know how, like, when people lose past loved ones, like, they're like, oh my God, I'm seeing butterflies because I'm that person. Like, when I see butterflies, my mom died, but I see butterflies, Whereas now I don't know really how I feel. Or I see coins on the ground. Or have you heard that one? Like,
oh, totally. Like, my grandmother passed away last year, and she was obsessed with monarch butterflies, and we've actually had them land on us, which I've never had before since she's passed away. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So my somebody I work with now, her mom passed, and she gets pennies everywhere, like in her shoe, like in weird places. And the logical part of my brain is like, it's not that I don't believe it, because I can connect with like dead loved ones. Like, I understand this all exists. Like, I'm extremely intuitive with that stuff. But whereas, like, okay, like, I see a penny on the ground, or I see 1111, does that necessarily mean that the divine or the universe is connecting with me? I don't know. But so the penny thing, I was like, I don't know. But anytime I'm around her, she's like, look, found another, like, in the weirdest places. And I feel like the universe is like, all right, Alexis, like, this shit's real. Wake up. Because I've been finding pennies in the weirdest places. Like, and I've never found money like that before. It's just so bizarre. But I wanted to share that because I just think it's so interesting. It's like, sometimes, like, I don't know, just the weirdest things happen for the universe to be like, wake up. And I'm sure we miss it constantly. Like even us. Even
yeah.
us.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I
if
know.
we are like godlike.
Yes. I mean, nothing gets past me, but it always does. Yeah. No, I think some of those moments as well, like, say the butterfly lands on your hand or whatever, and it's like, oh, I think of grandma. But what it does for the moment, yeah, you might think of grandma, you might think of whoever. And, with the penny thing, she might think of whatever. But whenever I find those, whenever the clock thing happens, whenever a weird synchronicity on a song happens, that like the momentary, God, the total terminology is slipping my mind, but there is this thing of levels of these synchronicities that happen, and deviation sync is actually what it is. This goes so deep, like I'll dive into it in a second. But these deviation syncs get deeper and deeper in people's lives. And whenever they do happen, though, it's almost like a bitch slap from the universe of like, hey, be right here, right now, because this is completely abnormal. The way you're living your life is not the way a normal system would operate. This is not the way normal people operate. Normal people are asleep. Their minds are elsewhere. They're numbing themselves. You are fully aware of what's going on. You're so aware that you're aware of a clock. You're aware of a penny. You're aware of a bug with wings that might be pretty, but you're aware of these things. It might take you somewhere else, but let it take you right back here after it's done taking you there. It's like literally every time one of those things pops up, it's like, okay, think about whatever you want to think about, but be right here, right now, because you're fully aware of something. Be aware of right now and get yourself grounded to the point you're at right now. So
yes,
yeah,
I want to do that. Like, yes.
Yes.
So loud. You're gonna have to do some sound shit with that. I'm like clapping in the mic. You know what? Also, it's like yes to all of that, but also, have you ever had a moment where something like a synchronicity or something really cool happens, and then like there's somebody next to you, and you look at each other like, did you see that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Am I crazy? No, you got that too? Like those.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're high. Have you been high before?
Yeah. Been a while, but yeah.
I mean, same. It's been a while for me, but like if you're high with somebody and then like you think you're like losing it, when really like they're completely aware of what's going on too.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just thought of that. Here we are.
There's definitely states of consciousness where I've been to holotropic sound healing, and there was some super like that was literally the closest I've ever come. I never did hallucinogenics or anything. It was literally like the closest I could describe to being on a trip. Like, and there was weird connections. Like I've had in those moments, it was literally almost like I could hear other people's thoughts. So out of the blue, thing is, it resonated through like the next couple hours after that whole thing happened. Like I don't know if I ever talked to you about Ben Carroll. He was the former guitarist in my favorite band Raw, and he's now a sound healer. So like literally this is like people who are like massive fans of like, big bands like Van Halen or whatever, like Raw, like the Sun God, they were my all-time favorite band. I go and see them whenever they're around and stuff. I became really good friends with Ben Carroll, who was their lead guitarist all these years, and he's kind of moved on. He's doing this like crazy sound healing stuff. Like he is amazing. And I went up to Maine to go hang out with him a couple summers ago. And I did this breathwork session where he was doing he's got quartz sound bowls. And he was at this breathwork session doing the sound bowl thing. And I kid you not, man, it was like my eyes were closed. I'm laying on the ground. And all you do is you just take full belly breaths in and full and completely exhale. It's a rhythmic thing. You're not hyperventilating like you're just full belly breath in and full out. And after a while, I started to get like a vibrating feeling throughout my whole body. I was seeing like geometric patterns. And so it was like a total wild experience. Like once it got done, I started laughing because it was like an hour and a half long. Like once it got done, I just like belly laughed because I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, I didn't think I was coming to this. Like, what just happened to me? When we left, the weirdest thing ever happened, and I've never actually told anybody except for Sylvia this, so it's kind of crazy. I'm talking about on the podcast, but why the fuck not, right? We're riding home, and it was almost like I could hear her say, I wonder what he's thinking about. And I looked at her, and she's just looking at me, and I'm like, So we get to where we're going, go eat dinner, and I'm like, so when I looked at you in the car and I kind of give you a weird look, I'm like, what were you thinking right then? She's like, well, you were just looking out the window, and I just thought to myself, I wonder what he's thinking about. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, snap.
I was like, that was what, like, you want to talk about like a synchronicity or a thing you couldn't explain. I was just kind of like, I've never really had like anything beyond my own like level of consciousness. But I mean, it kind of reminded me of like what you just said, like, oh, you know, people are high. They kind of like, were you just thinking of this, man? Or, you know, that was probably, I mean, I'm stoned. I was stone sober, not at a drop of alcohol in my body. And like that whole experience happened. It was just like, I want to get back to that. Like, I want to do that again.
And for people listening, if you've been listening to Heath for a while, you know this man is very logical. He's very smart. He's not going to technically, like, if you were to look at body cues and facial expressions, I'm sure you could put together, oh, they're probably thinking this, right? But for you, it was like a complete body awareness, knowing that you heard that and that's what she was thinking. It wasn't like you were trying to figure out what she was thinking based off of a look you gave.
Right.
Right.
I wasn't even looking at her. Like, we're in an Uber and I'm looking out the window. Like, I'm looking out the window and I just literally, like, in my head, almost hear her voice say, I wonder what he's thinking about. And I'm like, look over. I mean, I'm looking in the opposite direction and I look at her and she's just looking at me, just smiling the way that she does. And I was just kind of like, all right, that's kind of weird. And then,
can we talk about Sylvia for a second?
Sure.
And can you tell the people what you were upset about recently?
With what?
About a picture.
Which picture? What picture was it?
Because she looked like your child.
I don't remember. What am I having? I'm having a total blank. This sounds vaguely familiar. What was it though? I'm trying to think of what picture it was.
Somebody, I don't know if it was like.
Oh no, it wasn't my kid. No. What am I listening? So I had a listener actually message me, and a newer listener apparently, someone who just started following along in the last few months, and I had a couple messages going with them, and they say just out of the blue, "Hope you're having a good day. Your daughter's beautiful." And I'm like,
yeah.
It's not my daughter, it's my wife that's 9 months younger. So for all you people who think I might be robbing the cradle with my wife, I am 42. She is 41. She's extremely beautiful and she looks far younger than she is. Apparently I look far older than I look. But in all fairness, I have one of those like cartoon me pictures as my profile picture right now from Christmas Eve. And she's sitting on my lap and she looks gorgeous anyways, but it made her look younger. And I think it made me look older. Like it emphasized the gray in my beard. But yeah, that's the picture you're talking about. And yeah, that was that's one my ego is still trying to recover from. But thanks for the reminder, Alexis. I totally appreciate that one.
I laughed for like 5 minutes.
I pushed that downstream. I pushed that downstream a couple days ago, but yeah, thanks for the ripping that wound back open.
Well, if it makes you, I guess this wouldn't make you feel better because people usually get like, oh, like you're carding me. Whereas I'm like, hey, I'm almost 32 years old and I'm still getting carded. I'm like, hey, I'm a woman. People think I'm like 12.
Yeah.
So if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I got carded, but we won't go there.
Because you look old as shit.
Yes, I do. Although
you really don't.
I've had some excellent compliments, and I've got to say, like, I'd say one of the biggest things when it comes to being in good mindsets and looking, younger or being more active, it's literally pretty much everything we've been talking about today. It is mindset. Like a lot of it is obviously diet and health. Like I don't smoke, I hardly drink. Like, although maybe next time we start an episode, we're going to do a shot together before we start, but
we're totally going to do a shot.
Yeah, totally. And if you guys ever come out to Boston, we can get you in the chair over here for a live episode. We'll have a shot together. But I think that, limiting those things and keeping them in moderation is one of the major things that's going to keep you young. But I think also being young at heart, like taking the time to do activities that are out of your age group, approaching life like a child. One of my favorite, I'm not really big into Bible quotes, but one of my mentors always quotes the, lest thee be like a child, you won't get into the kingdom of heaven. And it's like, be as childlike as you can in your life. Like that's what the children are never angry or, I mean, not saying never angry, but they're never anxious. They're not, I'm not gonna say never. They're not typically anxious. They're not typically worried about how they're going to pay their bills in life. Like kids are just loving life. Like they just,
They're present.
Yeah, like they're just there and they're just doing things. They're doing whatever's fun. And it's like, man, we spend all these years thinking that we're figuring stuff out, and we get farther and farther away from that rewarding version of life. Like it just seems like a simple recipe, doesn't it? Like roll the years back and act more like a kid. So do that kind of stuff, you know? That's what's going to make you look young, feel young, and everything else.
100%. I don't know if this is like something that is innate to me, or maybe I saw my mother that was like this, but I feel like I do go into every moment or experience being like, how can I make this fun? And I think maybe that might be a personality trait. And it can also be toxic, I will say, because not everything needs to be fun, but I do think that is probably what keeps me looking young or feeling young too, is because I'm just like, I just want to have fun like all the time. And I want everybody around me to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could sense that, but I'm like, whenever you get too serious, I'm like, hey, Heath, hey, snap out of it.
Heath, you're doing it again. Cut it out. Just say yes.
Just like so.
Just say yes, Heath.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, say yes.
Yes. No, and I completely agree. I mean, I think that's why I've liked to work around kids so much. And, you know, there's so many circumstances in life where I've had to take things so seriously, especially even lately, you know, and getting into the political thing. I know that was a great, valiant thing that I wanted to do. It was semi-entrepreneurial because you had to kind of put yourself out there to your community, and it got me to step out of my comfort zone. Like I was a very, I go out there and perform when I was in my job and I had to do certain things, but in all reality, I like to just retreat and watch from behind the scenes or do what I got to do and disappear. And now that life is gone. Like I am front and center and doing all this stuff out there. So it's definitely a shift in the way that I've been able to look at life and approach things, but trying to maintain a less serious, version of myself while I'm trying to be mega responsible with all these responsibilities. That's been a really tough balance. Like if the last 6 months has taught me anything, it's that. It's like, all right, dude, I know you got stuff to do, but at a certain point, kick off the shoes, have a little bit of fun. If you feel like throwing an F-bomb on the podcast, go right ahead. If you want to get out there on politics on TV and say that somebody's flapping their friggin' gums, I said that on TV the other day, that some reporter was flapping his gums about the stuff that we did. It was just like, call people out on their bullshit, right? Call yourself out on your own bullshit once in a while too, and stop being less serious. Have that Alexis sitting on your shoulder every once in a while, everywhere you go, and just be like, dude, you're doing it again.
But I will say, from the moment that I met you until up till now, I can see a massive change in you, because I can understand, like, you've had such a public persona and been like a first responder, like going from that and having to hold it all together to now where I could understand how it'd be so difficult to just be yourself, to be vulnerable, to have fun, to relax. Like that's a huge shift.
Big time.
I think you're doing amazing.
Appreciate that.
Amazing getting there.
It's been a lot.
Okay, this is a moment. Looking 3 years from now, you're gonna be cussing on the podcast, like saying whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And people are gonna be like, what happened to Heath?
I'm sure they're already saying that right now. Most people must hear like, oh, Heath's got a podcast, this ought to be good, and tune in and be like, whoa, where the hell is this stuff coming from? Like I tuned in and dude was talking about aliens. I got her to thank for that one. No, I actually gave you a lot of credit in that episode, where in this off season, it actually inspired me to talk about whatever I felt like talking about and not giving a crap so much. Because when I first started this podcast, I was very much inspired by a couple of key people that, really helped me through that difficult time I talked about earlier. And, one was a very, very spiritual, very woo-woo, very much into meditation and all this kind of stuff. It was the Positive Head podcast, and Brandon Beecham, I talk about him all the time, and he was the guy that really got me through some really rough stuff. And I became pretty good friends with him actually throughout the course of like listening to the show. We connected, and then just every once in a while we still stay connected. I was supposed to go out to California and see him and stuff. I thought that to be successful, he was my role model in podcasting, right? I didn't know any podcasters. I'd never talked to one before. I'd listened to Joe Rogan and stuff. I don't talk to him, so there's other, I mean, he's got a huge podcast. He was like charting top 5 in iTunes for quite a while on his show. I mean, he's big.
Wow.
So, meeting some people like him and looking at him like a role model, it was almost like I felt like I had to do a version of his show and a version of him. And it was like I was too afraid to go too far down a road that might offend those types of people or the types of people that I thought were listeners. And the last few months after we do our aliens episode, and people talk to me about it all the time. They were just like, yeah, I turn the TV on because it's locally on TV around here. Like, yeah, turn on. You were talking about aliens or something. And I was just kind of like, yeah, it was. Before I'd be like,
what'd they think?
They love that one. I told you what they thought because every person I bumped into on a particular day had nothing but you to talk about. They're like, yeah, I saw you on TV. Your co-host is so cool. I like her.
No, in the meantime, I'm like, I suck at podcasts. I suck at speaking.
Yeah.
That was really cool to hear.
You said
but
that.
I didn't know if like the locals that saw, if they liked the alien.
Yeah, them locals. Them locals liked you. They liked the episode. No, the highest rating episodes. I'll give Alexis a huge shout on this one. That the 2 highest rated episodes of last season was her intro episode where she talked about her story, and then her aliens episode that she wanted to do. So. Congrats to you.
So crazy.
The 2 highest.
Wild.
I know. It's pretty awesome. It's why I can't let you leave the show. You got to stay here and help keep us afloat because you might be the only reason some people tune into this. So.
Oh, well, there's a lot more that tune in for you.
There is a lot coming, folks. Like we've got some awesome episodes coming up. We actually already recorded one from last season that we're going to still air. And this is just kind of like basically where has Alexis been for the past 6 months and what the hell have you been up to? And we dove into a couple things. So, but we got a lot of cool stuff that's on tap, and we're actually be sort of diving in together on some interview episodes with some people that we have coming up. So cool stuff, guys. Tons of cool stuff. You want to leave us with anything, Alexis? You made your words of wisdom.
I know. I just realized it's an hour. We've been doing this for an hour.
We have.
Awesome. Yes, I do want to say something about. I'm trying to think of what you were just saying because there was some gold there as far as not taking ourselves so seriously. Like I know that we hear that a lot, but it's so true. Like even if we did the alien episode and then we find out aliens aren't real, like I don't whatever, we're having fun with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10, right?
Yeah.
Even in 10 years, if we change our minds, that's totally okay too. We don't have to be so fixed in our mindset, and we certainly don't have to take ourselves so seriously. I don't know. I don't care. I like being the crazy person.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not. I just like to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to leave it off with.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, I think that is actually a bigger piece of advice than you realize, because people get so entrenched in their visions of the world, the way that they believe. And, that cognitive dissonance, they throw that out there in sort of a condescending way of people who are just like, oh, you're not willing to accept a different truth. But it's true. Cognitive dissonance is a huge affliction for the general population because they get conditioned to think one way. And a lot of time it's by politics, unfortunately. People get politically affiliated. They get tribal. They just get these defensive standpoints, and they're not willing to take in any new information that might actually be to the contrary of the way that they believe. So I guess taking things less seriously all the time, and literally, you could lean 80% in the direction of yes, aliens are real and they're here, and there's, the Pentagon is saying this, that, and the other thing, and all of it's true. You can lean that way just a little bit, but it's if you were crossing a river and you got to put your one foot to the next stone, you don't put all your body weight on that thing until you're sure that you're not going to slip or that stone's going to sink, right? So it comes that way about any concept or idea in life. Don't put all your weight on there until you are 100% sure, because most of the time we are making our beliefs based on false information or agendas or just stuff that literally we haven't digested fully, So if we approach it all without such a serious mindset and just say, what if this, what if that, and what if it's all bullshit and what if it's not? Well, whatever, it's all life. Let's just live it and see what happens at the end. Make fun of ourselves.
And I don't know about you. exactly. And I don't know about you, but I can lean this way of being like, meh, whatever. Like, aliens might be real, they might not be real, whatever. Like, who cares? I'm only able to do that because I've had such a fixed mindset on specific topics and things that I'm like, this is real. And then to come find out there's some untruths within the things that I had a fixed mindset about. So
Yeah.
now I'm just like, I'm cool with like not knowing anything and just like having fun with the beliefs that I have at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to hold on too tightly to anything because it's just like such a waste of energy.
It is, because we don't know anything for sure. We don't even know about things in history. You know, I just did a whole episode about Socrates and stuff like that. The entire story about him and what I did an episode on could all be somebody's made up story they made around a campfire 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I have no idea.
Totally.
It's a cool story and I'm going to tell it. Is it true or not? Pfft, who knows? If it is, then it was a really inspirational story. If it's not, then I guess we should still live examined lives like I talked about living, and an unexamined life isn't worth living. So there it is. There's my closing words.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. I think we close it there.
Yes.
That was amazing.
All right, Alexis, I will chat with you later on.
See ya.